in effect. Our governor has just extended the state of emergency until March 16th. So we are able to meet this month by video conference, and we plan to do so for our next meeting on March 15th as well. If the open meetings law exemption is not extended, our April meeting will be in person. We are live streaming to YouTube on the Lewisboro TV channel to enable viewing by the public. No one is at our in-person meeting location at 79 Boughton. This meeting is being recorded. Kirsten Conrad has confirmed that the YouTube feed is active and working, and that the meeting has been duly noticed and legal notice requirements fulfilled. We intend to post a recording and a transcript of this meeting to the town website. And this Zoom video will be available on the town's YouTube channel. So joining me tonight on this Zoom conference from the town of Lewisboro are the other members of the planning board, Charlene Indelicato, Jerome Kerner, Greg Lasorsa, and I want to welcome Bruce Thompson to the board. We do have a quorum, and thus we can conduct the business of the board and vote on any matters that come before the board. Also on this conference are planning and wetland consultant Jan Johannesson, council Judd Siebert, as well as planning board administrator Kirsten Conrad and CAC chair John Wolf. We do not have a public hearing scheduled for tonight, and we do not expect to take any public comment at this meeting. Members of the public can always express their views by mail or email to planning@lewisborogov.com. And again, the public can see and hear this meeting via Zoom or, oops, not via Zoom, but live on the Lewisboro TV YouTube channel. We ask any applicants that are not currently engaging in dialogue to mute their lines. This will help everyone hear over the inevitable background noises. And when it comes time to take a vote, to ease the recording of our votes, I will poll the board members individually. Okay, let's get started. So the first item on our agenda is a decision. It's calendar number 10-21 PB. This is the residence at 4 Bluestone Lane, South Salem. It's a waiver of a site development plan procedures application for the construction of a single family house. We discussed this at our last meeting, and we asked Jan to prepare a resolution for us. So Jan, perhaps if you want to go through that briefly.
Sure. This is a resolution to amend the construction plans for Bluestone Lane, which is a 3.1 acre lot located in the former Popoli subdivision, or JVG Estates as it later became known. That subdivision was approved by the planning board through a cluster subdivision plat. There's references to the resolution in that plat in this resolution. What's happening here is the applicant's proposing a home in a slightly different location on that lot, and the house is slightly extending outside of the contiguous buildable area. And the local zoning section 22010E 2D requires that the house and the septic system be installed within the contiguous buildable area. And that's how it was originally shown on the original construction plans. Now that we have a kind of a real lot development here, they fine-tuned it. The house was modified, and there was a slight encroachment outside of the buildable area. The Zoning Board of Appeals granted a variance to allow that to occur. And the applicants before your board to modify the construction plans to allow for the modification of that lot. So that's what the resolution is all about. It's a type 2 action under SECRA. The only other outside agency approval is the health department for the septic and well designs. So that's a condition of approval. And while the applicant's architects provided a nice site plan to show the location of the house and the approximate grading, there's a condition that they provide a engineered site plan to show any modifications in erosion sediment controls and stormwater management, as the house and the driveway has kind of expanded from the original proposal. There's going to be slight tweaks to the stormwater management system. So those have been made conditions of approval to be satisfied prior to the signing of the site plan. But that's kind of the crux of the application. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
And I should have said that we do, I believe Paulette is representing the applicant, so is here who can also answer any questions. But thank you, Jan. I think that was pretty straightforward. Summation of the resolution that we've seen that has been distributed to us. So any questions, comments? Okay, I'd look for a motion to approve the resolution.
I move to approve the resolution.
Thank you, Charlene. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jerome. Any further discussion?
We did more than just to discuss this at the last meeting, right? I think we've spoken about this before. This is what last meeting was not the first time it was on.
Correct.
I remember speaking about it before. I just want to know that to determine whether I need to abstain or not.
Let me try to go back, Greg, and find out.
I think I remember speaking about this.
Oh, yeah. We
Given
definitely was.
the nature of who it was and all that, I think I remember this.
What is the date of the original subdivision?
Let's see. It's noted in the.
It's in the
approval.
resolution, right?
October
Yeah.
21st, 2014.
14. Okay.
Oh, no, wait, wrong. That's not it.
2017, April 18, 2017 is the date of the subdivision plat. It was approved in 2017 as JVG Estates.
The original subdivision, right?
Yeah, I think the original construction plans under Popoli dated back to 2010, and then they were trying to sell the subdivision for some time. JVG purchased it, satisfied the conditions of the resolution, and the subdivision plat was filed in 2017.
So Greg, if you would like to see it, I'm sure Paulette would be willing to briefly show you what the changes are.
I kind of followed up on it from the last time. I just didn't think that the last time was the only time that it was on.
I don't know. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I will poll the board. Jerome?
Aye.
Bruce?
I'm going to abstain for lack of being familiar with it, but I hope it's going to pass. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Charlene?
Aye.
Greg?
And I'll vote for it.
Okay. And then I also say aye, so that the motion approves, the motion carries, the resolution is approved. And thank you all. You should have a copy of the resolution, and it will be signed and processed shortly. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an extension of time request that I am recused from, so I'm going to ask Jerome to handle this on my behalf.
Yes, I'm sorry, I don't have the calendar number at hand, but it's
08-12 PB.
Thank you, Greg. Petrocelli property, I think it's still Petrocelli, known as, on Oskaleta Road in the town of South Salem. Michael, you're here to address that extension.
Yes, good evening. It is one of my two clients, the two current owners is a Petroselli, and well, they're both Petrosellis, but the daughter is married, has a married name. So the engineer that they have working on this issue with the health department has asked me to request an additional extension of time. He needs more time to work this out. And so we filed the request. So we'd asked for another extension along the lines of the prior extensions.
We've been granting extensions of 90 days, and Michael had sent me an email earlier this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but there is something that we need to look at that may move this along. So I would, I would endorse a grant of 90 days.
90 days.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments from the board members?
And there's no, if I recall correctly, there's no limitation or there's nothing imposing on us to limit the amount of adjournments they can have, right?
No, Greg, there's
Extension.
not. Yeah. There used to be, but there's not now. Yeah.
Right. And so do we have a motion for extension?
I'll make the motion to grant the extension of time in accordance with the request.
I'll second it.
90-day extension, second by Charlene. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Let me poll the board. Charlene,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
I say aye as well. So it's unanimous.
Very
Thank you.
good. Thank you, Jerome, for sending me the link. I couldn't find it. Good.
And I'll just say, just for the record, that obviously I abstained on that
You've
one.
abstained, right?
Okay.
Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you, Jerome. The next item on our agenda is calendar number 8-14 PB, calendar number 95-14 WP, calendar number 20-14 SW. This is the Golden's Bridge Village Center, New York State Route 22, Golden's Bridge, New York. This is a request for an extension of the site development plan, wetland and stormwater permit approvals. Those all expired on January 21st, 2022. And we did get a request. I'm not sure who is on for this.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, my name is Rocco Triglia, and I am here this evening to represent the landlord, Steve Sipes. My wife and I took over his property management a little while ago. So, and I am somewhat, not 100%, but somewhat familiar with this site here. I know what has been going on. And tonight, of course, we're here to request another extension, possibly for 6 months, as we are in process to present a new development, in a sense, renovation for the hamlet of the Golden Bridge.
The Hamlet Center.
The Hamlet Center of Golden's Bridge. So we will need another extension, if you will.
Okay. I believe we can extend up to a year. And perhaps,
Maybe that's
I'm sorry.
It's phenomenal, actually. Because I know the things is not going to happen overnight, and I'm sure you are aware of that too.
Okay, so you would prefer a year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I see Jerome raising the hand.
A question, what are we extending? Apparently there's a whole new design. And if we've approved something in the past that's going to be totally changed, what are we extending?
I think they're trying to keep the formal approval, the former approval alive. So it's the site plan, it's stormwater, it's wetlands associated with the original approval. And I think that I think probably wisely so, trying to keep that approval valid while they're going to go through this exercise to modify the plan. But for some reason that plan didn't get approved, they would have a fallback. So I think it's appropriate to, while they work towards this amendment, that you try to keep the former approval in place.
Okay.
Well said.
So, so I'd look for a motion if there are, unless there are other questions, I would look for a motion to approve the extension of time for Golden Bridge Village Center.
So moved.
Thank you, Jerome.
For a period of 1 year, correct? Yeah.
1 year.
1 year, so it'll expire January 21st, 2022. And a
23.
second, I'm sorry,
I'll second it.
23. Oh my goodness, yes. And Charlene seconded it. And so any further discussion? I'll poll the board. Jerome,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Charlene,
Aye.
Greg,
I'll vote yes.
and I also say aye. So the motion for extension of time has been approved. And so you've got a year, but we hope we see you back before that. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is calendar number 04-19 PB, calendar number 17-19 WP, and calendar number 06-19 SW. This is Pound Ridge Stone at 2 West Road, South Salem, New York. This is again a request for an extension of site development plan, wetland and stormwater permit approvals. And that did expire on January 27th, 2022, and we got a request in before that. And again, I'm not quite sure who's on for this application.
I am.
Hi, thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Joe.
So we have all our ducks in a row in order to get the site plan signed. The only outstanding condition that we're having difficulty addressing right now is the DOT approval to close the existing driveway. They're just not responding. We're constantly trying to get them to at least tell us what they need in addition to what we've already submitted, but we can't seem to get a response. So with that, I was hoping we could ask for a time extension and an amendment to the resolution where the DOT work or the DOT approval isn't going to bind up the rest of the work that needs to be done on the site and could be issued at the time that work will be performed. So at this point, that's where we really want to be. We still have it on the site plan to do that work. We just don't want it to continue to impede us from proceeding ahead.
Okay, so I think the way to look at this is to first talk about the extension of time, and we understand why you're waiting for the DOT. And then second, to talk about an amendment to the resolution and to do it in two pieces, because I think we're going to have to ask for, if we agree, we'd have to ask for an amendment to the resolution to go forward. So if I understand it, I think we can get a 1 year extension that would take it until January 27th, 2023. So I'd look for a motion for that.
I move it.
Thank you, Charlene. Second? I'll second it.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Oh, thank you, Bruce. Bruce will second it. Okay, so any further discussion on this? Okay, I'll poll the board. Oops, Jerome first.
No, on the second part, I have a question on the second part.
Okay, so first will you vote, how will you vote on the extension of time?
Aye.
Okay, Bruce,
Aye.
Charlene,
Aye.
Greg, you're muted.
Okay, I don't quite understand exactly what we're voting for.
Right
I'm
now,
sorry.
yeah, right now, we're just doing an extension of time.
Okay,
Greg-
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Judd. I'm sorry.
Yeah, strictly an extension of the existing approval.
All right, so whatever else was mentioned is not on the table for us right now.
No,
Okay,
Not yet.
all right, so we're voting for a 1-year extension?
yes.
All right, I'll vote yes.
Okay, and I'm also voting aye, so that is approved. Okay, so thank you all. So now what we will do is discuss the second part, which was I think what Joe was talking about as far as the DOT.
Janet, can I just explain a little bit?
That would be perfect. Thank you, Jan.
Okay, so just so everybody's aware, we have a resolution that was approved. You just extended the time period in which they have to satisfy the conditions of approval, so the site plan can be signed. As is typical, your resolutions have a category of items that need to be satisfied prior to the signing of the plans, prior to the issuance of a building permit, prior to commencement of work, prior to a CO. And right now, the DOT approval is in the category prior to the signing of the site plan. And the DOT approval is really required because they're trying to close off an old curb cut on 123. They're not using the state road for access. They're coming off west, which is a local road. But the site plan requires them to remove the old entrance and restore it to vegetation, et cetera. So what the applicant's asking is, because of the issues with the timing with the DOT, which is understandable, that they're asking that the DOT approval be moved from the category prior to the signing of the site plan to prior to the issuance of a CO. So this would allow the site plan to be signed, the applicant to work on the property, but would the resolution, if you chose to adopt one, would require them to get the DOT work prior to the issuance of a CO and require that work be done prior to the issuance of a CO. So you wouldn't close the project until that work had been completed, but it gives them some time to get started, and it gives them some time to get the DOT permit in place. If they were relying on the DOT for access, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, but it's basically landscaping within the DOT right of way.
Yeah.
That's agreeable to us, if the board would consider that.
Yeah, so what we would do tonight, if we think that's a reasonable request, and I do, but we need the board, is we would ask that Jan prepare a resolution for the next meeting that would basically amend the resolution to move the DOT permit from early in the process back towards the end of the process. So yes, Jerome.
Yeah, I'd make that motion that we modify the resolution to reflect the change in requirements.
Yeah, Jerome, at this point, it would really is a consensus to ask Jan to draft a resolution, because you can't amend an existing resolution by motion. We'll need another resolution. And again,
but
you're not surrendering that condition. It's just a matter of where it falls in the process.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, though, that
No. Yeah. So I
if
think
this were a condition of creating the entrance, I'd be a little more hesitant. But
understood.
The fact that it's eliminating it, I think, takes away any concerns.
Yeah, I think as John pointed out, that's really the crucial point here, is that they don't use it for access. What they're really trying to do is complete and neaten up the site. So I think are there any other questions about this? I'd look for, go ahead.
Is the applicant making this request, or we're suggesting that they make this request?
They've made the request.
They made the request, right? I have a question. and that is that when when did it fall that it would be closed off during the construction process? Could it be used during the construction process or not?
No,
No,
not
the-
necessary. No.
Yeah. The
Okay,
construction
so-
entrance is off west.
Correct. So, but the point is that it will still be there. So perhaps it should be memorialized that it won't be used, lest it create a problem if there was, I'll just come up with, if there was an accident there.
We would agree to block it off
Correct.
until such time as we get the permit. And part of the, and Bruce, part of the work that's going to occur, the construction of some material storage areas is going to block it off anyway.
Okay.
But we would clearly agree to not use that access at all.
Right, and that, Bruce, that could be folded into an amended resolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think lest it get used and it creates a problem. That's all.
Right.
Good point. Okay, so as Judd indicated, what we need is consensus to ask Jan to write this. So I'd look for a thumbs up from everybody to say, yes, we want this written. 1, 2, 3, 4. Greg, okay, 5. All right, so we've got consensus. So that should be done next month. We'll see you again, Joe, next month, and we should have be able to vote on that
Okay,
as it's written then.
great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a sketch plan review. Calendar number 01-22 PB, calendar number 01-22 WP, and calendar number 01-22 SW. This is the HVDD SO hostel number 2273 on 8 Walkabuck Road, Goldens Bridge, New York. This is the application for reconstruction of an existing driveway and installation of stormwater practices. And I'm not sure who is on the on for this one. Lauren. You're muted, Lauren, right now.
Thanks. I'm Lauren Sherman with CT Mail Associates. So as you mentioned, we're proposing reconstructing the existing driveway, adding a couple new parking spaces, repairing the existing fencing, improving drainage on site, and replacing the driveway culvert and another culvert along the driveway. There's a wetland located adjacent to the driveway. We're planning to minimize disturbance as much as possible. And we submitted all the, the wetland and stormwater application forms as part of our package.
Yes, so if you would like to share your screen and take us through sort of an overview of the plan, that would be good.
All right, can everyone see?
Yep, there it is.
Yep. So this is our existing conditions plan. Right now, there is, an existing driveway to access the site. This is all paved currently. There's a fence along here. There's an existing wetland in this area and a culvert that crosses under. There's another driveway culvert over here, a smaller culvert located here. There's kind of poor drainage right now on the site, so we're proposing some improvements in this area, which I can show on the proposed conditions plan. But I just wanted you to see, what's here in terms of pavement right now. So you can see we're proposing to reconstruct this swale, drain it to a low area. We're relocating the existing culvert slightly and allowing it to discharge to where it discharged previously. This culvert, which is crushed now, would be replaced And we would be repairing the fencing and guide rail along the wetland boundary. And right now we have about 11,000 square feet of disturbance. So we fall within the, the 5,000 square feet and 1 acre of disturbance to do an erosion sediment control SWIP.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody want to see any more of this or have any questions of it while we're looking at it?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Jerome.
Two things. One is the fence, chain link fence. I noticed in Jan Johannessen's comments, he suggested removal. Is that for protection of the inhabitants? Or can you tell us a little more about the fence, the origins of the fence and why you want to keep it?
I mean, it is, I guess, a semi-secure facility. I think I didn't discuss specifically with the owner, but I would think that they would want to leave the chain link fencing. And I know it was mentioned to remove it to allow for, animal crossings. I can discuss that as an option with the owner, but I'm not sure that they'll want to have it removed.
But if it's not going to be removed, your plan is to replace it? Because it seems
There
to
were
be-
some areas that were damaged that they were planning to replace. I think it was in this section. I don't think that the whole thing was planned for replacement. It was just a section along here.
Right. The second question I had was in regard to the driveway. Is it predominantly sheet flow? And is it,
Yes.
It looks to me like it's toward the wetland.
Yes,
And
it was.
I'm
We're
wondering-
not really altering drainage patterns from what they were previously.
Right, but there is a question about fluids from parked cars and so forth that might be washing. And I wondered if a curb along that would be the east side, I guess, would be recommended in order to, or at least direct the water toward that bioretention area instead of letting it sheet flow into the
I mean, it
pond.
is currently draining that way, so anything that was potentially coming off of cars or salt or anything is going there now. I
Right.
don't know if we can, based on these grades, I'm not sure that we can pitch it over here. And this is really just a grass depression. It's not, a standard treatment practice because we don't, it's not required that we have one.
Right, but
I
we
also don't
haven't,
want to concentrate flows too much and cause erosion by putting a curb in and trying to direct it,
well, we
somewhere
have an
else.
opportunity here to make an improvement. If it is sheet flow into the pond, I would think that the curb and directing it to somewhere where it can be cleaned before it enters the pond would be preferable, but I'll leave the further discussion on that to Jan.
Would it be possible to move it all the way down so it enters? I'm not quite sure, so it almost joins with the culvert going under the road to discharge into that, not that far, the middle one, right? Yep, right there. I don't know.
So to get water over in here, you mean?
No, I meant even to move it to the east side of the road there, but there's already a discharge from or an overflow that would, I think that's past the pond at that point, right?
Yeah, because I mean, this is the main ponded area and then it kind of necks down before it goes, it's all kind of interconnected before it flows under the road. So really, I think the only opportunity to try to treat any sort of water would be, over here, because there's really no room to do anything on the other side.
No, I was reacting to Jerome's comment about perhaps a curb that would direct some of, or a little bit of a shoulder that would direct some of it down along until it could join, at sort of the exit point there.
Here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, not an engineer. Okay, Charlene, did I see you had your hand up?
Yep, yeah. I have just a couple of questions. How many new parking spaces will there be?
2. So this
Okay,
right here is the existing edge of pavement. So it's,
Yeah.
so it's kind of.
Is there a particular need for it? For the
I mean,
two spaces?
currently they're kind of parking, here, and they don't really have all that many spaces. So I think, they were hoping to have a couple more.
Okay, so it has
parking
nothing to do
spots.
with increased usage or more traffic or anything like that?
No.
Okay,
And this area gets kind of mucky. So I think they just wanted to, have that for parking. And then that's why we kind of redefine this swale a little better.
I guess I have another question on the chain link fence. Does it go all the way around the pond?
It does extend. I'm not sure if it goes all the way around on this side, because that's kind of the limit of our survey here, but it goes all the way along here.
Okay. So we have begun to talk about some of the aspects that are in the in Jan's memo. Jan, perhaps you'd like to take us through that? And it might be, if you could stop screen sharing so we could see them and see if there's questions that come up with faces, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. First of all, we saw this as a type 2 action under SECRA. They're before you for a wetland activity permit and a stormwater permit. I believe they've applied for site development plan approval, but I'm going to ask the building inspector to determine whether that's necessary for these type of facilities. In the past, I believe the town has considered them like residential. So there's a question as to whether site plan approval is necessary, but certainly before the board for a wetland activity permit and stormwater permit. The wetlands regulated by the DEC, so disturbance within their 100-foot wetland adjacent area will require an Article 24 permit. They're in the New York City watershed, so they'll be applying to the DEC for coverage under the Speedy's general permit. The state does not require anything above erosion sediment controls in this case. However, the town's local law does require the installation of post-construction stormwater management practices with impervious surfaces over 300 square feet has been our general rule. So I've asked for a calculation of net impervious coverage to see if they're going to trigger those stormwater improvements. They're on a state road, so referral to the county planning board is required. I think the plan should be referred to the building inspector for zoning review. At the same time, I'll ask him whether the site development plan approval is necessary. Just had some questions about the width of the length of the parking spaces and the width of the drive. I know a lot of that is existing, but the town does have requirements for dimensions of parking spaces and dimensions of driveways and the ability for a car to be able to turn around. So that all has to be illustrated on the site plan. That was comment number 3. We asked the building inspector whether there was any necessity for an accessible parking space. To make that determination right now, I don't believe there's one shown. We did recommend that the entire length of the chain link fence be removed. Kind of twofold. One, I think there's some benefit to allowing animals to get into the wetland and out. That fence is a barrier currently. It's also not in good shape, and it's covered with invasive plants and vines. I don't think it provides any sort of protection of vehicles going down that slope as much as a guide rail would. So we, for a couple of reasons, recommended that fence be removed and the guide rail be extended to the road. The site doesn't seem to be fully enclosed with fencing, so I'm not sure it had security reasons for the fence. I'm not sure what its origins were. Maybe just to keep people from going down the slope and into the pond there. But I think that there's some ability to improve that situation. Right now, there's no wetland mitigation plan provided, so we thought that that could go towards wetland mitigation. There'd be some ability to remove invasives and plants, you know, in and around the guardrail and down the slope to the pond to offset any impacts to the wetland buffer. There's some basic zoning information that should be provided on the plan: zoning setbacks, bulk zoning table. I mentioned the wetland mitigation plan. It is in the New York City watershed, so we asked that since there's some additional impervious surface proposed, that they just check in with the DEP to see if there's any permitting required from them. They did submit a SWIP, but the SWIP that we received did not have the appendices. So we'd ask that that be resubmitted. I didn't see a copy of the NOI, notice of intent, and some other components that we would need to review. Comment 13 speaks to the post-construction stormwater practices if they were to exceed 300 square feet of impervious, new impervious. Some details regarding the erosion and sediment control measures. The staging and stockpile area look to be within an existing drainage swale, so we asked them to either clarify that or demonstrate how that won't be a problem. The outlet of the pipe underneath the driveway looks to extend into the wetland and into the stream with a stone outlet structure, which looks to appear to be in the water. So I just wanted to see if that needed to be clarified or adjusted. The rest of the comments were insignificant.
Thank you, Jan. And that seems pretty comprehensive. I know, John, the CIC had a memo, but that talked about drainage off the driveway. Do you feel like we've addressed that enough, or do you want to make additional?
No, I think you covered exactly what we were trying to get to. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yep, Jerome was mind melding with you. Okay. So I think we have two things that we can do by consensus here. I'm sending it to the county planning department and sending this to the building inspector with a couple of the questions that Jan had specifically identified, whether we need a site plan, and maybe forgot what the other one was, but it's in the minutes. And do we need to send this at all to the fire department? I mean, ask the building inspector to take it to the fire department?
I think if you were interested in getting their comments, you would have to make that request. It wouldn't be done unless there was a request by the board.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think that this is
Yeah.
really much of a change, so I don't see a need, but I open it up to the thoughts of the board.
And-
Yeah, go ahead, Jerome.
And I think, I think if that's going to be made, that goes through the building department to the fire department.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
That's how
but I
they do
don't,
it.
we're not really changing that much. Go ahead, Jerome.
A question, I didn't know this existed as a hostel per se. I wonder if Ms. Sherman could describe the inhabitants, who actually lives there? What are their, just describe them.
Yeah, hey, folks, it's Jim Edwards with the CT Mail. I work with Lauren. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
kind of sneaking up on you here.
Okay.
Yeah, as a kind of an overview, it is a state-run facility. It's a DDSO, so it's their residents there, people with disabilities, and the parking is really just for the staff that take care of the residents. There's not really any visitors. There's a garbage truck that will pick up garbage once a week in the back. That's where you see the damaged fence. That's where that damage came from, and that's why it's being replaced. And overall, the fencing is really a necessity based on the residential use. There's a fenced-in backyard too. If you probably had no reason to go back there and kind of look that over, but it's really it's for the safety of the residents. I understand the wildlife considerations, but these comments we'd have to run by the state. Our client is actually the Dormitory Authority, DASNY, and their client is DDSO, Hudson Valley DDSO. So, some of these clients, I know you're doing a great job in reviewing a site plan, but they'd have to look these over and see if it fits operationally and from a safety perspective. But it is essentially replacing in kind the existing driveway. If you've taken a drive out there, you know that it's very low lying, very poor soils, very poor subsoils. And I'm sure this pavement's been deteriorated for the last 20 years, if I had to guess. The 2 parking spaces that we showed were more of our suggestion, only because people park in the dirt, kind of in the end. I don't think they really need them. And honestly, if the 300 square foot is breached, we'd probably go back and pull one back and leave it as one additional space in terms of having to provide stormwater treatment. That was our initial layout recommendations for them. And if that's what would trigger, that type of action, we probably recommend they don't put the second space in. But overall, it can just function better. So that was our job too, was to kind of let this, as they repave it, improve the layout, improve the function, let the garbage truck get back there without banging the fence, hopefully again, but we can't control that obviously because they'll do what they want to do. We even considered moving the dumpster up closer to the side of the building. But again, this is a state-owned facility. They kind of run the show, and we make recommendations, and if they accept them, great. If not, we'll kind of run with what they want to do out here. So sort of an atypical site plan for us too, in that it's a state-run facility. We've done our best really to lay it out, improve drainage, because it is a poorly drained site, and the water you see coming down the swale on the side of the driveway, that the origin of that water is way in the back of the property. So when it rains hard, the water runs down the side of the house and down I guess it's hope I got my bearings right here. I guess the west side of the parking lot, and just sort of ponds up there. We're at least allowing for it to run freely down the side of the paving, cross the road, and the rest of it would continue down to the state road, where again, that culvert's crushed under the road now. So we're improving that. That's the only reason we want to do work in that area where DOT has right of ways, because that culvert is currently non-functioning. So just a bit more background.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I see Jerome.
Well, I just wanted to end my comment by saying that, Mr. Edwards, we're making some recommendations as well, so that you may have to, as has been suggested, run by DASNY or the state and see how they react to it and come back, I guess. But
Correct.
We're concerned about sheet flow, and we're concerned about the fence in general and the invasives there. But the other question I had, or thought, was that masonry enclosure around a dumpster I don't think is advisable. And maybe Bruce, you might have an opinion on that as well. These garbage trucks come, they back up or pull up to take the garbage, and it's not as easy to repair a masonry enclosure as it is a wood or a metal stockade type of enclosure. But that's my comment.
Charlene, it looks, yeah, you had your hand up too.
Yes. As to sending it to the fire department, I would feel more comfortable if it were referred to the fire department, because Jan said something about, the width of the driveway and the extra parking spaces. I just would feel more comfortable with the fire department making sure that access to those residents in case of a fire is available and is easy access.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone on this? Okay, so I'd look for consensus, I guess, first to send this to the county planning department. Thumbs up. 1, 2, 3. Well, we got enough to hit. Okay, and also then consensus to send this to the building inspector. And so now we're going to ask him for, in addition to the site plan, I'm sorry, to the review, whether or not this needs to be a site plan, and to review this with the fire department to make sure that it is compliant with their needs. So I'm looking for thumbs up consensus on that too? 1, 2, 3. Yep. Okay. Anything else that we can do tonight? Or, well, I guess I'll ask Jan, given the concern about safety, is there something that's other than a guide rail or a fence that you can think of that might be appropriate here? Or, you know, does it change your view at all of your recommendation?
Not really. I mean, if the fence had to stay, a lot of times in sensitive areas, we look to raise the fence 6 inches off the bottom of the ground to allow for some animal movement. So that's a possibility. But, you know, I think it also goes to aesthetics. You know, I don't think the fence is in good shape, and it's covered in vines, and it's right up against 138. So, you know, it needs to be maintained like anything else. And there's no mitigation plan, so they're going to have to come up with something. And I thought that was an easy way to handle the mitigation, kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But I think one way or the other, the board should look at that fence and just see if it's going to be acceptable aesthetically. If you're fine with the way it looks, we can have them remove the vines and remove the invasives and lift the fence up to allow some movement, or cut the fence. If you're not concerned about that aspect of it, then, you know, it's really your call. It's really just a recommendation, things we look for. But as I stated, there is no wetland mitigation plan currently proposed, so they're going to have to develop one regardless of that.
Okay. Is the condition of the fence visible from the road, or would we have to
Yeah.
do a site walk to see it?
You could drive by, or, you know, it's pretty apparent if you look at Google Street View, some aerials. It's just something that hasn't been kept up with.
Okay.
Well, you know,
Go ahead,
Jan?
Jerome. Yep.
But, you know, this question of security or safety of the inhabitants, I think, begs the question of what other safety conditions there are. For example, is there a contained play area, a yard in the back? Are the people let out at all? The young people, I don't know what age group they're in. And, you know, if they are let out, is it in a fenced area? Are there alarms on the doors that would, that if it's that level of security? In other words, to claim that this is securing the pond, or, you know, is, I think perhaps maybe it's a shortcut to not doing anything else that might be more relevant and still allow people to get outside.
Yeah, I think Jim did say that the backyard was fenced, but I don't know. I'm sorry.
But a portion of the pond, the fence is going to be removed. So if security to the pond is a concern, they, you know, they're going to have a guardrail now that, you know, could be hopped over in a portion. So why not just extend it down? That was my thought.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, just because it's been there and just because the water is draining from the driveway into the pond now doesn't mean it has to stay that way. That's what happens when you come before us for improvements. We get a second chance to correct problems.
Yep. Okay. Yes, Bruce, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm confused about the state, and since this is a state-run facility, what authority do we have
jurisdiction
here? Jim alluded to something about the limitations of the work that he was doing for them. So I'm a little confused here. This facility has been there for a long, long time, correct? And has it changed? Has the residents has the nature of the facility changed? Is it still serving the same set of needs for those who were there, I just don't know.
Yeah, generally, again, I've only been to the site once, and I met the DDSO representative there. These are generally adults with special needs. They're residents. They're served by a staff 24/7, a small staff. And generally, I think they do go outside for some fresh air on occasion. I think the backyard is fenced. That's where the septic tank is. We were trying to get a handle on the drainage flow and different utilities and understanding how the site functions. But to my knowledge, as soon as the site changed hands, which I don't know when that was, it's been, I would expect at least 20 plus years ago when the state bought this facility. I was a little bit confused myself originally, and the state was as well, as far as sort of jurisdictional reviews here. So we just we went with the town's recommendations based on its proximity to a wetland primarily.
Mhm.
And a lot of the operational questions and such and history of the site, we did ask the state to kind of chime in tonight. We gave them the Zoom invite, but they didn't join us tonight. So, but that's the best of my knowledge as far as the history of the site.
Jan, who establishes the parking requirements for a facility like this?
I'm not sure there is one. I think it's based on need. Again, I'd ask the building inspector. We have a couple of not exact uses, but similar uses in town. And they've been treated as residential projects. And then therefore don't have a parking calculation. But, we'll have to get to the bottom of that with the building inspector. There's not a parking calc in the code that is for this particular use. So it's really dependent on, but if they're proposing parking, then I think that, they have to, and they're proposing a plan before the planning board, then there's a likelihood that they would have to show compliant parking in terms of, the dimensions of those spaces.
Does this owner operator of this site operate other sites in town? Group home sites?
I know of several group homes in town. I don't know if it's the same operator. I can't answer that.
Because I know there's one at the end of Todd Road where we live, and I don't know who does that. And the reason I bring up parking is that many times the residents are visited by family and the parking overflows onto the road. It happens to be a very wide portion of the road. None of us are really put out by it. That's Route 138 over there. That's a very different story on that road right there. I mean, it has a speed limit that's quite a bit faster than Todd Road. So I find it amazing that, Jim, how many parking spaces are going to be here when all said and done?
I will defer to Lauren for that. I think it's around 7 or 8.
Oh,
But,
okay.
Yeah, it was 7.
7? Okay. I misunderstood that. I for some reason or other, I thought it was like 2 or 3. So,
I
okay.
think they're adding 2.
They're adding 2. Okay.
Yeah, to your question about jurisdiction, I can't answer that, but I mean, they've applied to the board, they've applied to the state themselves, to the DEC for a wetland permit. So somebody on their side has made, a call that they need permits, but I can't.
And the board's jurisdiction is triggered because of the need for a wetland permit. So this is a wetland permit application.
And stormwater, yeah. They've also,
Water. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we'll refer this and we will get some information from the building inspector. You've heard some of the questions that we have about the fence, the slope, potential runoff. And so I think I guess I would ask, do you guys have any questions for us? Do you know what you need to do to come back?
I think so. It looks like your building inspector is going to weigh in. So I think we'd be waiting for some feedback from your building inspector. And also on the process, this is considered sketch plan. Is there a final site plan review process then that would follow this? I'm assuming.
At this point, I don't think it's certain that you need site plan approval. I think and we have to defer to the building inspector, but my view of this and looking back is that you're probably talking about a wetland permit and a stormwater permit from this board.
Right.
Not a site plan approval. And the wetland permit can be treated, either in the fashion of a board approval, or ultimately an administrative approval that's issued through through Jan. But I think we need to kind of walk through some of the initial steps here to figure out how this will be ultimately processed.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a bit unusual. We understand, the state was also trying to wrap their arms around this too, and DASNY, and it's a bit of an unusual site. It is a residence, but it's a state-owned residence, so it is definitely not your typical sort of site plan application process. So we appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, too. And we'll see you. I think the reapplication date for the next month is only next week. It's February 22nd. So I think we have, unless you can get a lot of this stuff done, it might be 2 months before we see you again, but hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Sure. I think the
Thanks.
state's consideration is just, having the driveway rebuilt upon construction season kind of kicking off. So I think we're on the right track for that. So.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda was really for 153 and 151 Post Office Road. They have asked to adjourn until they resubmit, so we're going to skip over that. Unless, does anybody have any questions about that? We'll just see it next, when they resubmit.
Yeah.
And we're going to move to a wetland permit review, calendar number 70-21 WP. This is the Gardner Residence, 23 Walkabuck Roads, Golden's Bridge, New York. An application for an addition, a pool and a patio. And I see Bob and I guess Alan are on for this. So Bob, you want to start?
Sure. Good to see you again tonight. We went through most of the comments that Jan put together at the previous meeting, and there's, I would say, two significant changes to the drawings that we had. The first is we changed the location of the mitigation area. We were proposing it to be between the house and the pool and the stream. Instead, we've moved that mitigation area to the east of the house, in other words, on the opposite side of the house from the pool. Did that because it's a clear area without trees. And also, Beth was concerned about the DEC's view of the impact on the stream if we came as close as we were showing it previously. The other significant thing that we submitted was a drawing that showed the neighboring properties, the structures, the septic systems and wells. And what we show on that drawing is that we're at least 200 feet away from any structure, septic system, or well. And so we really have I don't think we're proposing any impact at all on those systems.
Okay. Well, I did have a question. I mean, I saw the change in the movement of the mitigation area. And it seemed like, first of all, it's being actually seed mix in the wetland area, and wondered if that's, how that's going to work. But also, I did notice a couple of trees and shrubs. I think 3 trees might be going down in order to put in the pool. and was hoping that some trees could be integrated into this. And really, I've sort of felt that the former area, just was more protective of the stream. So than kind of what looks to be an open area. So Beth, maybe if you could go through a little bit about that mitigation and why it moved and what's going on there, I think it would be helpful.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Jim. The mitigation area that's shown, it was my choice because frankly, that area is where the greatest concentration of barberry and multiflora rose is. That's, if we're going to try to remove invasives, I'm sure Todd and Laura are going to want to continue to do that closer to where their living space is. But in terms of an area that is large enough for the mitigation ratio for the 1-to-1 mitigation, the eastern portion of this property really is almost impenetrable with barberry. And there are some trees there, and I'm sure that we can add some trees to the mitigation area to go along with the seed mix. The reason I didn't propose shrubs in that area is simply because we're trying to remove shrubs, and in terms of long-term monitoring and getting the little barberries that come back out, it's easier if we're not trying to tell a landscaper, don't take that blueberry, take that barberry. I love the way barberry turns into bayberry a lot of times when you're talking to landscapers. So we're trying to do something that could be holistic, if you will, and actually improve the habitat. That eastern portion of the wetland is quite open, which is why we chose a wet meadow mix to try to enhance the seed bank, but we can certainly put some trees in as well. I just don't want to put deer food down there and have to have a deer fence. So that was my thinking. The stream where it gets closer to the house and the lawn area, it's actually quite steeply banked. And so I didn't want to be yanking barberry out on a steep bank. I wanted to try to concentrate on an area where I felt we could be more effective on a larger area. So if that answers your question, hopefully, but otherwise, it's not just where can we draw a big circle. It was actually based on the field conditions.
Okay, thank you. That it helps somewhat, although I do want to try to protect the stream, and so that's why I kind of was thinking maybe a little bit more over in the other area as well.
The stream actually, I don't say this lightly. The stream is pretty well protected by the very dense growth on the sides of the banks near the house, between the house and the corner with the road. It's the area, it's the more open area that I think provides better wetland habitat and more productive wetland habitat on the east side of the property, where I just think that barberry is going to keep marching toward the stream over there. So that's why I chose it. We can certainly move it. We can go out and take a look when we do the stormwater testing, but based on my crawling along the edge of this wetland through barberry, I felt there was more good to be done on the eastern side of the property.
Yeah, I know that stuff. I've pretty much fought a war against barberry in my backyard, but the edges of the property are a stark contrast. I mean, it's tough. I know that. Jerome, did you have your hand up?
No, I'm just looking at the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Maybe Jan, I'll ask you for a summary of what you wrote up.
We're down to just a few, and they really mainly deal with the mitigation at this point. The stormwater, the comments have been addressed, but we need to get the deeps and perks, the soil testing completed and witnessed. I think that was really it for the stormwater. And then it was the mitigation. There's an area shown, there's a seed mix specified, but the means and methods of the invasive removal and the maintenance plan going forward all have to be developed and provided on the plan. And I agree that there should be some bolstering of the mitigation area with trees. If shrubs are not ideal, then, I think there should be something to go along with the seed mix. Because if the seed mix is not successful and it becomes just a lawn area, that's not something that we're interested in having as mitigation. So the mitigation plan really needs to specify how it's going to be maintained. Over a certain period of time, there's going to be inspections, reports filed, etc.
And I'm happy to do that, and I could provide that by the next submission deadline. I just there are trees out there, and I can make a quick site inspection and try to get you some pictures of that area, just so you see what the intent is.
Why don't we go there together and just walk the area?
Well, now that sounds very efficient.
I kind of agree with, I'd like to see the area
Yeah.
Elongated a bit along the stream corridor without messing with the banks of the stream, since it's directly downhill of the improvement. And
Good. I'll try to set that up with you, Jan. So that's
yeah.
an excellent suggestion.
But that's really it. I mean, the majority of I think the other comment was just, there's a lot of site plan sheets, and I hate to go through them and try to figure out if there's any inconsistencies between the two. So I'd like to just pick one, show all the site work on one, and just have a smaller set along with the mitigation plan. So if you can help coordinate those details and the site work onto one set of site civil drawings, that would be helpful. But I think the plans come a long way. Appreciate the work that the team put in to get it there.
Yeah, it's Alan. I just thought I'd also mention, well, hopefully with the weather now that we're midway through February, we'll be able to get some soil testing done soon. It was obviously very difficult in the dead of winter when it was frozen out there. So hopefully we'll be in a position to do that. Can I just ask one question regarding the need for a perk test? I'm just going to ask the question, you don't have to answer now, but the modeling that we did for the bioretention in the rain garden did not involve any perk rate at all. It did not have that at all. So I guess the question would be whether we could just limit it to just doing a deep hole test, just to confirm the soils.
You have to ask Mr. Cimelli. That's his comment.
That's fine. I will ask Mr. Cimelli.
Yes, Jerome, I see your hand.
Yeah. Due to the condition of the plan and where we are with it in terms of planning board commentary, is this an appropriate time to suggest a resolution or a motion to go administrative on this project?
I don't know. In a way, I'd sort of like to hear a report back after Jan and Beth visit the site. I don't know, Jan, would you feel comfortable at this point, or?
I would be fine so long as the applicant committed to, modifying the mitigation plan as we've described. We can have a meeting of the minds on what that should consist of. If it needs to be elongated along the stream and bolstered with some trees, if that's something they can agree on, I wouldn't have a problem.
Okay.
We have no problem with that. We'll definitely agree.
Okay, and I did see, John, I think the CAC memo also mentioned some trees, but you had them more in the, in one of the rain gardens, I think, or.
Yeah, I think the trees just to replace the ones taken down. We also, and I don't know the site topography, but should there be a no-mow area and should it be demarcated? Does that make sense for this?
Monumented in some way. Yeah.
Because, this may pass on to another owner at some point, and so that needs to be, I think, maintained and marked.
Yeah, I think we might have made the same suggestion, but I could talk to Beth about that in the field too.
Yeah. We'll definitely make sure that where the mitigation is happening, it's clear what the long-term maintenance and management of that area is to involve. It's not to be turned into lawn.
Okay.
Well, that sounds good. So, so Jerome has made the suggestion that we handle this administratively from now on, or delegate this to Jan to handle administratively. So I believe we do this by motion. So if you want to put that in terms of a motion, Jerome, we can.
Yeah, I would move that we resolve to have this administered by our planning consultant for from this point on.
Yeah, I'll second that.
That was Greg seconding. Any further discussion on this?
I would just note the motion, is recognizes the commitment the applicant made with regard to mitigation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Recognizing that there's consensus on a meeting of the minds for improving the mitigation to include trees or shrubs.
Great. Okay, but I think that's great forward motion, forward progress. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll poll the board. Jerome?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Charlene?
Aye.
Greg?
Yes.
And I also say aye, so the motion carries, and this will be handled administratively. Thank you, Jan, and also thank you to the team. I do think this has moved quite a bit further, and I think your willingness to work on the mitigation is helpful to getting this to an administrative position. So thank you.
Thanks for all your time on the
Thank you very
project.
much.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. Okay,
Good
so
night.
the next item on our agenda are the minutes from January 11th of 2022. And I think we had a slight, I think Bruce found a typo on them today, so we've gotten a new version. He is appointed by the board to our board, thankfully. So I'd look for a motion to approve the minutes.
I so move.
Thank you, Charlene.
Second.
Thank you, Jerome. Actually, I'm thinking about that. Okay, so I'll poll the board, assuming no discussion. Jerome?
Aye.
Charlene?
Aye.
Bruce? I think you have to
It
abstain.
sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to have made a correction, and then now I'm going to abstain. So.
That's true.
Well, we agree with you.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
And Greg, you weren't here, so he has to abstain. And I also say aye, so the motion does carry and we have approved the minutes. Quickly before we adjourn, I wanted to give you an update on the recommendation that we made for an extension of time on the fees to the town board. The supervisor did come back and ask me for ask a couple of questions about what other towns are doing, and Kirsten and I are trying to gather a little bit of information from other towns, and we'll pass that on to them. But the fact that it didn't get discussed at the last couple of meetings does not mean it is either rejected before going to the board or rejected by, or forgotten. So we'll get them that information and see what steps they then decide to take. I also was asked, do you do all this that often? And it looked like about 10% of the applications last year in 2021 about 10% of the times the applications came to us, they were extension of time requests. So that seemed like it's a sizable amount of work among everyone. So, so that is just the update on where we are there. Our next meeting date will be March 15th, and we will be able to do it by Zoom again. So we will be doing it by Zoom again. And then if the emergency is not extended, we will have to meet in person in April. So with that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Jerome.
Second.
Thank you, Charlene. And I think we can do this by consensus, right? So,
No, vote.
oh, we need to vote on this again.
Vote.
Okay. Jerome,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Charlene,
Aye.
Greg,
Yes.
and I also say yes. So the meeting is ended at 8:52 p.m. Thank you all, and